foremost, before we unpack these strategies, what is it that is even my own personal reasons for wanting to really unpack and support young children with challenging behaviors or who may display them? So when I was a toddler teacher in the Bay Area in California, while I was in my first year of graduate school, getting my master's, I had the experience of having 3 young children in a group of 12 toddlers that were showing signs of anxiousness and frustration and meltdowns for longer periods of time than their peers. So transitions were very hard for these children. Napping was challenging. And even with prompts saying, you know, after circle time, we're going to go and do activities in this other room. If these children were not ready to transition, any of those 3 children could become very upset. They could become loud. Maybe they would strike another child. Maybe they would fall out on the ground. They would begin to cry. So these are things that I started to document, right? So as educators and caregivers, what we want to do is be very observant. And as facilitators, we want to be able to take the time to note what it is that we're seeing. Now, we know how busy our field can be in caregiving. So I do know the realities of actually being able to sit down, take out a piece of paper, document it, or even use some type of tablet or a phone very quickly when you're supporting all these children. But even if you take the time, not even in the moment, when you get home, when you finish your day, to document the behaviors in which you're seeing, I believe that it helps bring clarity and it allows you to be able to see clearly when things are happening and maybe even the why. And documentation is very essential, as we all know, across the board, because when you're looking at the bigger picture, you have been note-taking your observations, right? What it is that you saw, the date you saw it, the time you saw it, the environment at the time, excuse me. And these are very beneficial when speaking to either administration, to family members, and later on, even if you have to move to developing plans for a child in order to support them best. Let's talk about some of the strategies for preventing and de-escalating challenging behaviors. So when we start off to talk about de-escalation, right? So this is before the meltdown. This is prior to the tantrum. This is before the aggression and, you know, maybe a child escalating and it turning into something where maybe even the child, maybe even striking you. Some children become very aggressive. I believe that one of the first important things is, 1, begin the day with a self-check to make sure that you yourself as a caregiver are not dysregulated. So sometimes we need to unpack and see what our own personal stress level is when we come into these environments. Arm, kneel down. Oh, listen and acknowledge big feelings, right? Big feelings. We have to listen to, we want to be more mindful about listening in order to hear, opposed to listening in order to respond. I'm going to say that again. We want to work on listening to hear, opposed to listening in order to respond. And what I mean by that is when children are telling and showing you, I'm angry, I don't like when this happens. I don't want to do X, Y, and Z. These are usually very big. I'm not going to do A, B, and C. Listen, acknowledge those feelings. I hear that you don't want to go to, I know you don't want to go to the bathroom, but I wouldn't like you to have an accident. So I'd like you to try. But I do understand that you don't want to go, but I'd like for you to try. Listen, acknowledge them first, but say what it is that you'd like for them to do. If it's met with resistance, then of course, in that moment, you have to see, does this child need to go, or would I like for them to go? So usually you can kind of rationalize those moments out and see what is the best decision in that moment. But at least listen and acknowledge first before reacting or responding. Next, we want to redirect any negative behavior and replace it by reinforcing positive behavior. A lot of times, while I had young toddlers, I had the opportunity of seeing the response of behaviors being negative behaviors transforming due to the fact that I was able to very quickly replace it with positive language throughout the day, right? So for something as simple as, I don't want to go outside, but the whole group is going outside. I understand that you wouldn't like to go outside, but the whole group is going outside, and I don't want to leave you inside. I don't want you to be left out. I'd like you to be a part of the group. So would you like to come and join us? So instead of telling the child to go outside, I have invited them, and I've also let them know through a nurturing way that they will be missed. Right? So they do have the right to say, I'd like to have this choice. I want to be over here. Now, if you have the opportunity to have a split group that's going to be in a different place where this child would like to be, then that's absolutely fine. But at least give them the opportunity to be heard, and also let them know that you have a place for them. You hear them, you're listening, you're acknowledging the big feelings, and you have a place for them. Next, never shun a child unless you believe the child may harm another child, you, or themselves. Now, I know we've probably had times when one of any of these have happened, or maybe all of them. I've had aggressive, I have had, you name it. I've seen it happen to adults, and I have seen it happen to other children. And I have learned over the years that in most cases, being able to de-escalate and not having to physically engage with a young child usually is more beneficial if you have the proper strategies and language, and you're able to anticipate the behavior opposed to reacting to it. Because if we're in a reaction mode, of course, you're being cautious and keeping all the children safe. So it's natural that you would want to probably restrain a child. So what I'm saying in this bullet is just make sure that if you feel that you have to do this, it is only when you know another child will be harmed or could be harmed, you may be harmed, or the child will harm themselves. But if none of those things are taking place, then I am a large believer in allowing that child to express themselves. have that, that meltdown, hear those feelings, and let them know that you hear the way that they're feeling. How would they like to support them? What is it that they're showing you? Are they hungry? Do they miss their parents? Maybe in the home? Are they tired? Right? We want to be able to go down the complete list and rule as many things out as possible before moving forward into restraint. Right? We want to make sure that we've checked these boxes before we move into these other steps. Going back to my original point, the importance of having a journal or a notebook, right? At the end of the day, you can just get a piece of paper, a clipboard, and just begin to write what it is that you're seeing, right? Sometimes on your 10 or 15-minute break, something's, just pressing in your mind about what young Michael or Brittany did at lunchtime or at nap time or transition. When it's fresh in your mind, I highly recommend that you find a piece of paper or scratch paper and you quickly notate that when you can.